enjoy the show, play on Perjangers.
Backwards, forwards, and all the way sidewards.
There we go.
It is none other than us, the Tales of the Hunted podcast, and we have a really, really great guest. I mean, we were even just briefly talking at all the stuff that you've done, which is Dime Store Detective. You sent me issue 1 rather, and I sent it over to Frank just so we have an understanding of what we are talking about. When you have 1 through 4 available on the Kickstarter, 4 obviously being the new one coming out, we see a lot of this in Kickstarter, and it gives a person like me, who I'm more or less more inclined to buy a compendium or a whole mass of stories at once.
Yeah.
It speaks to a comic collector like me saying, hey, it's not that much. It's right here. Link's going to be in the description below.
A lot of people there are not sure what it is. And so once in a while, if I'm going to go on a show, I give them issue 1 and they usually are pretty happy with it and have me come on and a lot of times buy it. So that's pretty cool that people are really enjoying Dime Store Detective.
Dime Store is nice. It's a really great looking comic, especially with the artist that you have involved with it.
Yeah.
I am a writer, Frank is obviously he was not obviously, but for our fans it's obvious because I keep saying it. He was an anchor for Punisher War Journals. So
that's awesome.
It's an awesome accolade, but he also has his own comic, and he gave me the opportunity to write the side story for his comic. Nice. And for a writer to accurately be able to portray what's going on in the film strip up here and put it on paper for an artist, just as an amateur as I am, do you have any tricks or tips to do you go with more film references? Do you go with something just that you bond with that person to get them to realize what you're trying to say? Do you just use bigger words? Like, how do you portray your thought to the artist?
Well, hopefully I've written the script well enough and described it well enough that they have a good handle. If they have a question, they'll message me, but they're in Argentina, so sometimes English for some of the artists aren't.
That's a barrier.
But for the most part they get it, and if very few times they'll ask me a few questions, but 99% of the time, 90% of the time, they have a good handle on it. They always send me a sketch too before they actually draw, so I look through the sketch, or sometimes there'll be a couple sketches and say this is good. Once in a blue moon, if it's something really specific, I sketch it out myself, which hopefully they can decipher because I can draw. My talent level is right around kindergarten to preschool. So I'm a really good writer, but I can't draw to save my life. So that's how I approach it. And I don't try to make it too, specific because, a comic is a collaboration. You've got an artist, you've got a colorist, and a letter. So I really, I detail it, but not too much to where I don't want to pigeonhole, a story. Like I said, like a movie, you're the writer and then you've got a director, and that's, I guess, the director, artist and a writer are sort of the director, I suppose you could say. But I mean, it's kind of something just get a feel for, I suppose.
Sure. Do you focus on one thing or another when you're writing it? Like, hey, this will be a good thing for the guy I have in mind to letter, or this will be a nice thing for that person?
No, you just write, man. You just write and just try to make it the best you can. And I don't even think about any of that stuff, because you write it and then you hone it. And hopefully you've written it well enough that there shouldn't be any question marks. And like I said, you don't want to get too, like if it's like somebody's talking, you definitely want to say this person to the left so the dialogue goes first. But I mean, if you get your hands on a professional like him, I'm sure he can he knows what he's doing.
Oh, his first advice was, Matt, just write it. And then, like, after months, I did it. And he's like, good. See, you did it.
Yeah.
Now we'll worry about the
Yeah,
rest later. Leave it alone.
Yeah,
And I
I
have.
think new writers probably get too specific. You know, you don't want to get too specific because, you know, like I said, it's a collaborative effort when it comes to the art.
Yeah.
Well, and he just gave me kind of a synopsis to work with. And it's like, look,
Mhm.
I want you to start here and maybe end here and have fun.
Yeah, yeah. I've never wrote for somebody else. I've only written for myself. So, yeah, I don't know how well I take direction.
I'm trying to go backwards now and write my own thing. And
Yeah, yeah.
it's
Well, yeah,
it's hard.
it helps.
That's where I'm trying to, I want to write my own story out as a next kind of objective for myself, writing wise, because I've already done this, and write my own comic story. Since I'm around all these amazing comic writers, why not? Let's go. So
Yeah.
any advice from me going from this situation, writing for off a synopsis, to going for an idea that's been mulling in my head for like a decade?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I've noticed sometimes a lot of people that are comic book fans but not writers first do a comic, and it's a lot of amalgamations and it's a lot of stuff you've seen a million times in movies. I've always felt it's better. I mean, it doesn't really matter, I guess, but I was always a writer first and then loved comics. So I would say, I never read comic book, how to write a comic book. I've only read screenplay books. So I know Dirk Manning, who is a great guy, who has a book called Right or Wrong, and I've heard great things about that. And I can tell you, Dirk Manning is an awesome individual anyway. So I don't know if have you heard of Dirk Manning, guys?
It sounds familiar. I can't.
It sounds familiar because I've gone on that writer's book kind of inspiration.
He does it. Well, you're more into the horror genre anyway, I take it. Yeah, so he writes mostly horror,
Okay.
but it's a writing book of how to writing. I would recommend that.
Okay.
Like I said, all I can tell you is what I know, what I've read. Save the Cat is a screenwriting book, but it gives you the fundamentals of screenwriting, which book writing comic book writing is basically the same thing. So I read Sidney Lumet's, but I've read a lot of screenwriting books, but never a comic book writing book. But like I said, I've heard really good things about Dirk Manning's Right or Wrong book. So that I would encourage you to pick that up because, man, I'll tell you what, whenever I read a comic book by somebody, I shouldn't say I'm trying not to say anything negative about new writers because it is tough, but you know,
sometimes
you just got to write every day.
You need that rough love from a person with experience to just say, look, my idea is like an amalgamation of like a whole bunch of stuff. That's why I'm like, no, that sounds like something I've already heard.
That's your first story anyway. Yeah, I mean, that's really your first story, and then you get better at it. But I would, if you want to do I would write every day. Writing is one of those skills that you just get better at every time you write.
Every time. Well, with a lot of things, I think you know, that same principle applies. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah. I think the key, if you're going to write something, and that I notice new writers don't do, is you have to create empathy for your main character. That's very important, and I see a lot of writers don't do that. And I think that's kind of that's a new thing in movies that I don't see very much. You have, even if it's not a really good story, if you care about that main character, you're going to stick with them. So that is very important. I would say, like, something that's kind of getting lost, I've noticed, but you right off want to make the character, you know, you care about that main character, because it doesn't even have to be a great story that you're going to follow through because you love the character.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah,
that's a great point.
That's also one of the reasons when I got back into comic books, I've said to previous guests, is it was on Walking Dead. I had a friend who was really into comics, and he saw how Walking Dead was starting to gain popularity, and he said, hey, man, you really want to love Walking Dead? Read the comics. And then
Yeah.
I didn't stop off of that. I found Invincible. I went back to Spider-Man, and I went into, all right, Comixology, what do you have for me? Amazon, looking at you too. I went through every free thing that I could get. I went to Ollie's. I went to conventions. I gathered all these stories and consumed all the knowledge I could in my later, in my 30s, which a lot of guys I feel do. And that's the age that we're at now. And I think a lot of people can feel inspired to do a story.
Yeah.
But like me, they're a little bit put off because they're like, my idea sounds a little bit too much like this. But I have written stories that did work. And they started off like that, and you keep muddling about with them until someone says, hey, stop it. You're done. You're done.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've been there. I think everybody who's ever, written anything has probably been in your same position. So.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, photography books are a lot easier. I just I take the pictures and I put them out there, and I'm like, hey, that is my book. I'm done with that. The written word, I always find I get hung up on. I know I can write that a little bit better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the saying is a script is never finished; it's just abandoned.
There you go. Art is the same way. You just I just gotta let it go. Just as is. And when I talked to Matt, he says, when I look at my work, even though it's out there, I say, all I see is the flaws.
Yeah,
it's true, because you let it go. You just had to let it go. Time wise, it's due. Blah blah blah. Whatever it is, it's just time to go. And you just kind of honestly abandon it, and it's true. So if you don't assess and look at it, you're just pumping out crap. So if you don't miss it and see all the problems, you're not going to fix the next one. You're not.
That is true. Anybody did ask me what my favorite comic book I've written is, and I always say it's the next one. So
that's good.
It's always the next one. That should be your goal anyway, too.
Mm-hmm.
It should. I mean, I'm looking at your Facebook, and I love the Alpha Dogs issue 5.
Yeah, that just came. The cover, I just showed it today. I just got the coloring back. Yeah, I had to do an homage to one of my all-time favorite storylines, Days of Future Past. So yeah, it's pretty kick-ass.
Oh my God, I love that storyline. It's so good.
One of the best. And he wrote it in like 2 issues, if I remember right. And it's crazy because nowadays Marvel, it would be a 12-issue series now. Chris Claremont would just pumping out great issues. But I want to say Days of Future Past is only a 2-issue comic, if I remember right. It's been a while.
Good. It's been a while. Yeah, I can't even remember, but 2 to 3, less than 4. Something like that. That was very good. I mean, his early stuff that he did was like just the artwork is just beautiful. I mean, that's when he actually did like a lot more detail with stuff, everything. But he kind of slowed it down. But overall, it's just quick to the point, and what he was pumping out was just fantastic. That and the Alpha Flight story, the death of Guardian. It's like, man, that just hit like a string. Like it's just a comic book. Oh my God, it hit a string on me. So
absolutely,
there was some great stuff.
When you can get emotional out of a comic book, that they're doing something right.
Right. Yeah. You felt something about that character. Yeah. I really did feel something about the Guardian. It's like it was amazing.
Even just reading your first comic was great because it felt like if there was like Law and Order below the southern border, bum bum, but then the dad was almost like Bo or Luke Duke.
Yeah.
It feels like something so new because you're like, all right, what if Law and Order meant Dukes of Hazzard. What would happen?
Yeah. It's definitely you could consider a very, very dark issue of the Dukes of Hazzard as Dime Store Detective. Yeah, it's got a lot of cool elements to it. It's it's a supernatural crime mystery story. So we open up, and I wanted to do a prologue. Nobody ever does prologues, and I just had a really good idea for a prologue, I felt. And prologue should, to me, it should get you interested in the story. It should have some foreshadowing. The theme should be in there. So you don't read very many. I think mine came out pretty good, and
it did.
Then we go and I wanted to show in the next page how times change but are still the same. So on the left panel, you've got 1981 with black and white. And then in the next panel, on the splash page, the double page, you've got in color, same spot, but different, obviously different events. And then the last one, we have the body being buried. And the next one is the girl that's been strung up, the third victim of the serial killer. Mm-hmm. And she incidentally has been left over the burial grounds. The detective's father and uncle buried multiple bodies 40 years ago when they were involved with their moonshiner war with the Dexy Mafia. So there's a lot going on, but it's really simple to follow. Like I said, I go black and white and color so that nobody gets confused, and it gives it a good noir look to it, I think.
Yes. Noir is the perfect word for that, because that's what a lot of, I would even say, dramas are really missing out of it. It's that noir whodunit. A lot of even just sci-fi have lost that in the main, the main everything that they're doing. There was a whodunit, not just a monster of the week, and there was a bit of mystery. It was this guy, it was Farmer John from down the street, and you didn't know. Scooby-Doo made it formulaic, but they weren't wrong. Sometimes it was refreshing. It was just Farmer John.
Yeah. So it's definitely Dime Store Detective. You're not going to see another one on the shelf. It's a very original story. I only do comics that I think I'm going to write something that no one's ever read before. What's the point of doing that if you're going to do something that you've seen? So I've got my other series, Alpha Dogs, which I sent you the article. It was just announced 2 days ago that Alpha Dogs, because they only do graphic novels. I'm sure Dime Store Detective will be published through them as well. But I signed a publishing deal with Source Point Press, so it's really exciting. It's my first publisher, so awesome. Hopefully that goes well. We'll see what happens.
That's exciting, especially getting with a publisher. I mean, I see a lot of really, really talented comic artists, and especially with publishing costs, they get beat over the head.
It is tough. I still going to run my Kickstarters to help, with the cost.
Sure.
And then, like I said, it's just graphic novels, and I still own it. It's still mine. It's a creator-owned publishing company, so that was important in case, who knows what happens with it. I want to be able to keep the rights of all my stories. So.
Sure.
Because you weren't just involved with Dime Store Detective. You have multiple different titles that you work on.
Yeah, very different genres. So I got Alpha Dogs, which is, as I said, it'll be anybody that's go to your LCS, your local comic book store. They can pre-ordered Alpha Dogs graphic novel through Simon & Schuster. And that's January 15th, 2025 is when it's released. So my title, Alpha Dogs, it's about this dog that has the ability to heal from any wound. He's smart enough to understand human speech, and he has a heightened strength. Him and his owner are on the run for mercenaries that are trying to kidnap him to manipulate his powers. So it's if you like mystery, if you like dogs and superhero stories, it's something that would be right up your alley. It's kind of like X-Men, but with dogs, kind of.
I give my dog credit just for barking in the background. He's the hero of time, Link Diablo. And I mean, that's the kind of credit I give him. But this dog is actually, you can understand him. He's doing good for the community.
Yeah.
He's a better boy. I'm sorry. Sorry.
So that's, and that came about because we had lived in this town that outlawed pit bulls, and we had a pit bull mix. So we moved. And that inspired me to create the series about this dog that's feared by the public because of his breed and size, but he actually has a huge heart. It's got a theme of prejudices and about abandonment, with dogs, people. So it's a real fun story. And then my other title is called Space Cruise, and totally different than anything else. It's a sci-fi. It's got a lot of comedy in it. And issue 1 was just, I'm actually packaging and shipping them as we speak right now. That was my last Kickstarter. So we'll see how that goes. That's a fun story too. I wrote that. Actually, it was one of my first comics. It was back in 2009. I had started it. It got finished in 2012, and that's persistence. And I wasn't able to pay to have it totally finished. I did the lettering. Lettering looked like crap, so I just abandoned it, and there it sat for over 10 years. And then I was lucky enough that Alpha Dogs did well as the graphic novel, and I was able to put the funds into finishing Space Cruise. And so, I've been at it a while, so it's success. Not that I'm a success, but it's getting there, hopefully. That I got a publisher, but
you're doing
multiple titles
That's
going out there.
Long time. So,
but it's just like I was telling you before we started podcasting, is that you're the kind of person that needs to take your titles and submit them all to the Heroic Awards. I started off this year with Frank and this podcast, doing a podcast with Mark McKenna. We met him at Comic-Con. I thought, this is crazy. This year can't get any better. Shortly after that, I got an agreement to do the intro and category videos for the Heroic Awards in general. They're going to show at C2E2, the second biggest Comic-Con in the country. So I thought, oh my God, this is going to be crazy. It went off without a hitch. Everybody loved everything, but I also got this insight of how amazing it is to have an indie comic award show created for indie by indie people. And that how much they need to believe that these judges, it's not like, all right, we have 200 judges, all 200 are going to judge everything. Here's the judges for this, here's the judges for this. They take it, segment it, so what you enter into, you are getting an honest opinion of everybody who enters into that and takes that, all their judgment, and they have a whole criteria, I forget the word that Richard said, but we're getting him back on podcast after we talk to you. We're going to be talking to Richard again, because the Heroic Awards, I feel, is a very, very important thing for indie comic artists, especially because people like you have like 3 different titles in the works, and it's one after the other. There's a Kickstarter, you're trying to fund it, you're trying to do it, but there's not a lot of recognition for the hard work, the amazing writing, the amazing coloring, the letters, the technical difficulties that go into everything. There's a lot of things that they highlight during that award show that a lot of people really appreciate from the fan side as well as the creator side. So that's why I'm going to continue to talk about the Heroic Awards. Those guys are absolutely amazing, and we're going to get somebody on about that quickly so we can continue to tell all these amazing indie content creators, if you have created a comic in 2024, submit it to the Heroic Awards so that way you can get your comic in there for judgment, so you can get there and be in front of everybody and show them your amazing concept, your amazing idea that turned into what you have submitted. That is what's going to be highlighted, and all your effort and struggle will be too. So we like to have a nice soapbox for indie content creators in general on this, which is the reason why we want our fans to hunt you. But Space Cruising, give me like a good little synopsis of that was the title that I immediately linked into.
So Space Cruising, it's about this Bushido warrior, an enhanced human Bushido warrior, this alien who loves pop culture. He wears a cowboy hat, I Shot JR t-shirt, and android that is 300 years old. It's long since obsolete. These 3 guys, they're kind of always get into trouble. And sorry, my dog's barking.
You're good.
So it takes place in the future. So in hundreds and thousands of years, the Earth has become unlivable. So humans travel to a distant galaxy, light years away, and find two planets that are sustainable for human life, but they have neighbors there. There's over 300 different races of aliens in this galaxy, and they are not taking too kindly to the humans kind of setting up shop, living on their planets. They end up going into a war with the humans, but unlike what we've come to know, the aliens being highly advanced, well, it's the humans that are highly advanced, and they destroyed the alien races pretty easily. And so now the alien races have to live under the Earthlings' laws, which they're not too happy about it.
Right.
So there's a lot of unrest. And here comes these three guys that have they're outcasts of society. The one guy, the Bushido warrior, he was used think of like a Green Beret, I guess you could say, or anyway. So they were instructed not to play by the rules of war by the government, the United States. Well, after the war, there's a lot of unrest because of them kind of going rogue, and the humans disband them, or they'll face war crimes against natives. So he's out, left in the wind, and then you've got the alien. So even though there's a lot of unrest with the humans, like most foreigners that come to America, they love pop culture, American pop culture. And in this case, with this, it's the world's pop culture. They love radio, they love beer, different delicate cheeses. They love all that stuff. And so you see aliens dressed up like cowboys, like Civil War soldiers, like back in the 40s they had the fedoras. So the aliens all wear human clothing throughout the centuries, but there's a lot of unrest. And then you have these three guys that come together: the Bushido warrior, the alien who loves pop culture, and the obsolete android. And their only mission really is to make a quick buck selling human artifacts. So they'll find an earthly artifact somewhere. Now, I don't want to give it away because it's part of the humor, but the things that they find amazing and rare are not what we would find today. So it's not like they're finding Roman coins or the Hope Diamond. It's like a toilet plunger or something like that. I don't want to give away too much, but it's inordinate objects at times. So there's a lot of humor there. And, I think people really resonate because they're going to really feel like they're sitting in the cockpit with these guys. They're going to be like their buddies. There's a lot of humor that goes on in the story. So it's a lot of fun. And at the end of the day, these three outcasts who society has really shunned, they end up having to save the galaxy. And that goes on and further issues. But issue 1 is basically an introduction to this brand new world that I'm hopefully explaining well enough for you to understand. But it's a lot of fun, and I encourage people to back it. I've got a few reviews because some people have gotten them, and people have really enjoyed it.
Well, it seems like a fun premise,
Yeah.
especially with how you're describing it. You have an interesting set of characters going through, especially. I think I was just talking during Silly Little Podcast with Michael Florio on this network that when aliens come back and they, do their ancient archaeology.
Yeah.
We really hope they don't excavate LA first.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, I wouldn't blame them there.
We should have like some kind of Göbekli Tepe, like in the center, like Kansas. Like, hey, they were different.
Yes.
Look at everywhere else. Here's a map.
Yeah, I don't blame you there.
And that would be a tourist attraction.
Yes, definitely. The ruins of society.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like the Love, Death, and Robots.
Okay.
Which
I've never read that. I've heard that's really good though.
I saw that it was on Netflix. I believe it got sold to Amazon.
Okay.
But it is a really good series, and it is just great when they pull out the episodes with the robots, and they're just kind of looking over like a tourist over ancient human society, looking at things wrong. It's just, it comes back to that Doctor Who episode where they're in the floating, Titanic in the sky, and he thinks we worship Santa and we're at a war against Turkey.
That's funny. I've never seen Doctor Who. I've never watched that, but I heard it was a really good show.
I mean, is there any premise that you haven't touched yet that you wish you are looking at rather next to expand out into another topic?
Well, I had written a screenplay. I'd love to make that into a comic book. So I had written a screenplay called The Weeping Trees. It's a historical fiction story, and I was actually a 2-time. So the Academy Awards puts on a screenwriting contest every year, and it's called the Nicole Fellowship. And there's people that have won that. Well, they pick 5 winners and have had their movies made. There's a lot of movies. Achille and the Bee, Arlington Road. A lot of movies have been made because of the screenwriting contest. And I was a 2-time semifinalist with this screenplay. I beat out 7,300 scripts and finished in the top 180. And so there was some exposure, but it never, like 99% of scripts, it never got produced. And I'd love to turn that into a comic book. It would be a really great comic, but it'd be a graphic novel. It's just, it works better. I mean, people have, I don't want to say complain, but there's people that are like, well, Dinosaur Detective should be a graphic novel. It works better. It's like, well, yeah, if I had the money to do that would be great. In a perfect world, I would do that. But
I wish everything I read was a graphic novel. Okay, I'm the compendium guy. I grab it, give me the whole story. I'll read it all in an afternoon, and then I want another one tomorrow morning. I don't care if you broke your wrist. Let's go. Me and the doctor have a healing plan for you.
There you go.
Get you going.
Give me my floppies. I'll wait till the last one comes out.
Yeah.
And grab them all at one time. I want that. I want that when it comes out. I want it. And it's nice to get the trade paperback, but I don't know. I'm still a floppy fan. I still gotta have it. Just that's what I grew up on. So
I go. It just depends what it is.
Right. Unless it's too expensive. Unless it's too expensive. It's the price like shot up. Like that's the only reason I would get the trade paperback. But other than that, give me the floppy.
Yeah, and floppy's still. I mean, they're still reasonably priced. They're going for like $4 sometimes, depending on who it is. I mean, I wish I could do that Kickstarters, but I don't. I'm not able to do that. The price of printing is just because somebody like me, I only print up like 300 issues, so
really
printing is like really expensive. So
this is the thing that I really found interesting about the Heroic Awards and why I really stress it. They're not paying me. I will stress this to my fans because last year the finalists got to sit down with a publisher and say, okay, we like your idea or we like you for this idea. You get a sit down with the publisher.
Man, that's awesome. Which publisher? Mad Cave?
Antarctic Press. You got to sit down with them, and then you would get another sit down with Diamond. They extended it out. They have a really, really good structure to where they're finalists. Like, oh, you were a finalist? Hey, let's have a conversation. So the indie market is getting at least a conversation, and that is starting the names out there, and it's putting it out there for people who may not be.
They still only about 2% of comic book writers actually get a publisher, so it's nice to have that avenue to potentially get somebody. And our press, they're good people.
The other site I like to also push, and they're also a friend of the podcast, is fundmycomic.com.
Okay, yeah, I've heard a lot of good things. I might have to
love him.
Go through them on something because I've been hearing a lot of good things about them.
Already lower than Kickstarter. It's 3%, and that's more for you to take back. But there's no algorithm. There is more of an honest chance of you actually getting the attention of your fans just by your fans and their friends sending people there. The normal people going to Fund My Comic. The more you go to sites like this that are not controlled by an algorithm are going to help out the indie market so much more, because it's, hey, this looks good. Let's put it here. Doesn't matter if it doesn't have any funding. It doesn't matter if that's right next to a thing that has 20,000 or 30,000. They're putting it up there. You're there on the front page. They're putting it out. You know, I've had guests on this podcast that have been on the front page of Fund My Comic, and it is so good for indie guys. So from the awards to the start with the Kickstarter, and you can use your Kickstarter and plug it in to Fund My Comic.
Oh,
he tries to make it easy. So I try to give these all indie guys these options when they're looking at their comics. Like, hey, you guys got options now, because there are people who are out there like my podcast and this podcast of just trying to help build people up. And you got a lot of really good ideas that I think if you take it to the Heroic Awards, Dime Store Detective will definitely, if I had to bet, if there were a market for it, I'm not allowed, but I'd probably put my nickels on you, kid.
Oh, that'd be great.
Detective.
So I would only be able to give issue 4 though, right? Because it's a comic from 2024, correct?
Yes.
Yep.
This year.
What is the deadline for it?
I'm not sure. I would imagine it's 2024, but I'm going to ask Richard when I have him on soon. So it's it's one of those things that it gives a new breather to your comic. You're like, all right, you're already thinking about your next one, but now you're like, hang on, that was a good story, or you know what, we really did have really great colors in that, and you're starting to think of those. You're starting to think of it, and you're like, you know what, I'm just gonna put it in these categories. I'm gonna put it in this. I'm gonna put it in this category. Let's see where this goes.
Yeah.
And, you know,
it won't hurt.
That's where it helps indie, and you can really even get in the finalists. People look like, oh, who was that? That is great. Because what I did last year for the categories was interior shots and your cover, so they saw a quick reference of what you were bringing to the table, and bringing out that by indie for indie. That is the churning system. So that's why I like to turn people to it, especially talented people, because I talk to people who have been in Canada, who are, you know, outside of our range, who we see at cons and all that, and the very talented people who may be very good for story, or maybe be very good for colors, or very good for line art, or something that they have available that will bring new light to them, but also let a whole swath of nerds, we'll call them swath, feels like an accurate verb to describe them.
Yeah.
Swath of nerds to appreciate that, you know, those titles.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough getting your name out there when it's just you, but yeah, it definitely it sounds like a cool avenue to try.
Especially because podcasting and the whole networking is different, especially because you have a lot of podcasts that are out there that people try to highlight and boost up other people on, and a rising tide lifts all ships. So this is how we get everybody's word out there, and we talk about all the projects going out there, because this is how everybody will get the fans aware of the projects, to where they can look forward to the very best and brightest. They can see where the very best and brightest comics are coming out of, and they can be at the forefront, just like on Kickstarter, to get the you know, all the separate benefits that come from early benefits of, you know, just supporting early.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
So I have to ask this question, I usually do. Marvel and DC, they knock up on your door. Who is getting your idea. You have one idea to sell. It could be animated, it could be comic, it could be live action for either Marvel or DC. Who would it be and why?
I've always been a Marvel guy. I mean, to be honest, I haven't read a Marvel comic or a DC comic in probably, God, 8 years. So
that means it's a good decision.
Yeah, it would be Marvel. That's what I grew up on, and I always was a fan of theirs. I don't really read them anymore. I couldn't tell you the last superhero story I read, to be quite honest. I read a lot of Image. Mostly, right now I'm reading Feral from Trish Forstner and oh my God, I'm blanking. The team that did Stray Dogs. I'm reading that. And Saga just came back out again, so I'm reading Saga. Speaking of compodiums, or
you reminded me of stuff I bookmarked.
I'm
like, oh wow, I did mean to go and read that. Oh, okay.
So I read a lot of Ed Brubaker's probably my favorite writer, and of course Brian K. Vaughan. So it's I try to, and this helps as a writer, I think, is I try to read all different kind of titles that are well received. You know, I'm not going to pick up some crap. So I try to read what's considered like the best graphic novels. I just finished that. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the very famous. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the title. It's a biography about the girl in Iran when they switched in '72 when Ayatollah took over and everybody had to wear the burqas and stuff. It's a they made a movie out of it, and I'm just blanking on the name. Anyway, so I try to read a lot of different comics, graphic novels. I read mostly graphic novels. But yeah, there's 2 titles I'm reading right now, and that's Feral and Saga, which I think came out this week. So, but yeah, I couldn't tell you the last time I read a superhero story. This was a Kickstarter. I will help fund people's Kickstarters. You know, you can't just take, you got to give a little bit. Mm-hmm. So I've backed like 42, 43 comics. Some of them are good. Some of them not so good.
So let's put it this way then. Which indie comic that you've backed or comics that you've backed would you like to see taken into a form of an adaptation, whether it be, you know, animated or just, you know, somebody
for any comic book I've ever read, or like indie guy,
any kind of indie guy that you've backed,
that I've backed. Oh my God, on a Kickstarter.
Yeah, Kickstarter.
I can't think of any off the top of my head, to be quite honest. I mean, I can't think. I mean, Ed Brubaker. I mean, by anything he does, I would like to see that made into a movie, which I know they're doing a TV series now, Criminal, which is pretty cool. I've always wanted to see Why the Last Man. I know they tried to do it, and it fell on its face. I saw what they were trying to do, and I was like, this is not Why the Last Man. So I didn't even pay attention to that.
Yeah, I know. I caught a couple of that, too. I was like, that's not what you meant. That's not what you meant. Go back in the corner,
it's
think about what you really wanted to do, and then come back again. I know you can be so much better than that.
Yeah. I didn't even pay. After I saw the trailers, I said, I'm not doing this. So.
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
Yeah, it's too bad because it was such. I mean, besides Watchmen, it's the best comic book I ever read.
Oh yeah. I've read a good bit of Why the Last Man, and I got excited for that show. I was like, oh, this is going to be great.
Yeah. Well, they're not Brian K. Vaughan, and Brian K. Vaughan can write. I mean, he's such a great writer. I mean, he's one of the best writers we have right now, I would say. But yeah, I would have loved to see Why the Last Man, or Femme Fatale by Ed Brubaker. That's not as popular as some of his other ones, but it's a great graphic novel.
Okay. And the ultimate point of those questions is to really get a good title. Give the fans a good title. Like, okay, were you guys taking notes? You should have been. You have the benefit of rewinding this back.
Yeah, we'll see. I would love. People always ask me, about my comics when they're going to be made into movies. Dexter Detective people think that would make great series, Alpha Dogs, and it's like, well, I don't make those decisions. That'd be great, but
love to have it, but
yeah,
I'd love to
it doesn't
see
happen
the
that way.
detective, Dime Store Detective, start off as almost like a Dick Tracy, and then go into the black and white in the memory scenes, and play off of both of those, because in the digital space, there's a lot of, memory you're playing off of from everybody watching it, but it's a fresh enough story that people will get used to the animated style, especially with what they're doing with Into the Spider-Verse and a lot of the creative stuff they do online. Even when you're looking at like a documentary, they're adding in amazing animated CGI scenes. So I think that is the perfect medium, is like a Dick Tracy into old-time black and white detective style, just like you have in the comic. Switching between that in the animated show would be awesome series.
I think so. And the cool thing about Dime Store Detective is every issue gets better. The most difficult issue to write is always the first one, because you've got to give the exposition, you got to set up this world, and you got to do it entertainingly. So I think people are going to be really happy with issue 4 that's on Kickstarter right now. I'm not funded yet. We're getting there. It's still got like 21 days. I think $900 right now from being funded. So we still got a lot to go. Every comic I've ever done has been funded, so I'm not worried about it. But it'd be nice to get it funded sooner rather than later.
Yeah, because that's the more you get to put into it.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, I'm going to go check it out. I'm going to go check that out. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll have all the links below, because it's I love the Dime Store Detective. As soon as I started reading it,
it was very nice.
It was just like the feeling I got when I started reading Carissa Grant's Holy Chaos Redemption. I'm like, oh, I need to read like about 10 more of these comics. So do you have an IV drip version yet? Because
yeah.
You're gonna tap into that Matrix like Neo real quick.
It's the trailer's great too. I don't know if any of you guys caught the trailer for issue 4, but the trailers are great. I always say, if the trailer doesn't get you to want to back the comic, I'm pretty much out of ideas, because there's a great trailer with it, and the covers this is the best covers, the best 3 covers that I've had put together for the Dime Store Detective. They're really great. And it's tough to choose the best one, really. So I encourage anybody to go over there, check out the trailer, check out the covers. There's some preview pages in there too, so gives you a good idea of what you're in store for. So it's basically, it goes back and forth from the present to 1981, the past. And not to give too much away, but you'll see in the trailer anyway, the Moonshiners go to war with the Dixie Mafia. This is a real gang that existed in the South, kind of like the New York Mafia, but the South. So they were drug runners, they were hitmen, and this gang goes to war with this family, 4 generations of moonshining, and they're not going to go away. They're not going to run away. They pick up arms and they're going to fight them. And the detective's father and uncle go into the Appalachian Mountains and find this hidden cave. And in the cave is this evil entity that's been trapped for hundreds of years by the Cherokee. And they, of course, are in their 20s. They don't listen to the warnings, the hieroglyphics
probably had a reason. Yeah, I was going to say, they probably had a reason for having that trap. Warning!
So, they end up freeing this evil being. And not to give too much away the story, but it may or may not have returned in the present. And this Detective Donald McInner, has to try to make the connection of the past with his family's moonshining, his uncle being possessed, and of today, the serial killer that's left his victim over the burial grounds. The detective's father and uncle buried the bodies, and there's a bottle of moonshine shoved down her throat. So this serial killer is definitely trying to get the attention of the detective. So It's got a lot of cool mystery. Like I said, if you like noir,
It has
I always say it's kind of like True Detective
supernatural
meets
kind
Stephen
of
King there.
like
Yeah.
detectives, but it's still supernatural. Like, hey, we still have to figure out which
like
one of
that.
these supernatural entities did this.
Yeah.
Let's get to work.
Right.
I love that cell. It's just so deep because you can do a lot with that story. And it's
and it's 8 issues when it's all said and done.
Okay. That's that. It just tell the story, and it's just really, really good. I hope that I'd love to see DC pick this up and say, "Guess what? I'm just gonna."
Well, Source Point Press is going to be picking it up, so it's going to have a publisher.
Oh wow!
Once it gets turned into graphic now, I mean, it hasn't been done yet, but they picked up Alpha Dog, so Alpha Dog will be published through them.
Awesome.
And I'm sure they love Dempster Detective too. I think they like it better than Alpha Dogs. I don't know what he said, but I know they loved
you gotta
Dempster
play
Detective.
coy first. You're like, all right, I'll take the cup holder. Like, oh, just the cup holder, not the cup. And you're like, you know what? I'll take the cup too.
Yeah, so I'm pretty positive that'll be published through them when that gets turned into a graphic novel. So
that's fantastic. That's really fantastic.
Yeah. I hope so. Like I said, nothing's been said, but I mean, I already have a contract for Alpha Dogs, and they love Dempster Detective. So unless Alpha Dogs falls on its face, which I hope not, then we could hopefully we'll be seeing that published to them. So
nice.
We'll see. Yeah,
very nice. Very nice.
It's great. It's been a lot of hard work to get a publisher. It's been years, and I mean, God, forever of trying to get a publisher. So to have a publisher, it's just another hurdle, though. There's another hurdle after that. So I gotta hope that Alpha Dogs takes off and people order it. It's in bookstores and on Amazon too. So it'll be pretty cool.
Go out and search it. I'll add it in the description below of this podcast because that's one of the big things. Are you very big into the con community? Do you go out to a lot of cons?
Yeah, I mean, I just got back from Chicago Fan Expo last week in November. I try to so I've only been going this was my second year really officially of going to cons. I went to 2 years ago. But then last year I hit them hard. And then this year I've hit them hard, because Alpha Dogs came out in 2021 during the pandemic. So there was no Comic Cons.
Yeah,
in 2022, they were just kind of starting, and I really didn't get bursting out with my comics until 2023, really, and then this year. So I've hit them hard this year. I'll be at Motor City Comic Con. That's the biggest one in Michigan in November. Actually, September 19th, I'll be something you guys might like. It's called oh God. Now I'm blanking on the name. I swear. I just got out of work and I went right to work, took a shower, ate, and got on here. So sorry. It was 90 degrees out. I'm an inspector, a construction inspector for my day job. So
it's the perfect
I was outside a lot of the day.
Time of the year for you.
Perfect
time of the year. Yeah.
But it takes place in Detroit. It's like a horror convention, and it's like Fanaticon or something like that. But anyway, it's September 19th in Detroit. If you like paranormal stuff, if you like horror stuff, then you would like it. And then I'll have a table set up because I got my Dempster Detective, which fits right in there, and I'll have a table there. So, and I might be at the Grand Rapids one this year. I'm still waiting to hear back, and that's in November too. So, and then if anybody's in Ohio, I'll be at the Toledo Comic Con in March. So that's really when they start up again. It kind of ends in November, and then they kick off again in March. So
yeah, it's probably pretty brutally cold winter, during that time anyway.
I got some cousins out there. I see their pictures. Yeah, it's pretty cold. Pretty vicious out there.
Yeah, I live in Michigan, so we get some cold winters, but it was it felt like we were in Texas today because it was really hot.
Yeah.
It's been a toasty, and I put out 2 photography books this summer, which
cool.
try to take pictures of flowers during a drought.
Yeah, that would be kind of tough.
It's really hard, I will tell you. I did succeed in some, but it's really hard to take pictures of flowers
Oh
in a
God,
drought.
I can imagine. I can imagine.
Same
I got these dang dogs right underneath my feet.
Uh,
So this is our new puppy. This is
adorable.
Buttercup. She's not the cutest little shit you ever seen.
Oh, adorable.
I just bite my fingers.
yeah.
Then I got the other one underneath. I'm a big dog guy. Of course, I wrote Alpha Dog. So
Sure.
Yeah, you probably
Yeah.
saw my Chihuahua.
yeah, I did see in the background
Chihuahua
walking
dogs
back and forth.
Link here.
It looks like an aisle manager walking back and forth checking up on you.
That is his job, an aisle manager. He manages, and he's also a very big basketball fan because the neighbors play basketball out back, and he knows when they're traveling and when somebody's making a foul. He's always commenting on the basketball. He's a big fan,
That's funny.
apparently. I don't
Well,
know.
it's only worry someone you can understand what he's saying. Then I would worry.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, just that is when you should typically worry. Yeah, typically.
Yeah. But yeah, it's I still got 22, 21 days left of the campaign. It's going pretty good. So yeah, if people want to check it out, and if you like I said, if you like horror, if you like mystery, if you like thrillers, then you definitely would enjoy Dexter Detective. And you, like I said, you get all my titles on the Kickstarter. There's a section where you can get the Alpha Dogs trade plus issue 1 of Space Cruise, and if anybody's interested.
You had the catch up. You had the catch up phase, and I'm like, oh,
yeah,
this is where I should be hanging out. Okay, because I need to catch up here. And that's something that everybody should add in there, especially when you have one or more titles out there. Hey, you want to catch up? You're my fan? Right here.
Sure.
This is the option
There
for
you
Yeah.
Have that available. And that was one of the first times I've seen it. Maybe have been used before, but I thought that was a very clever way, marketing-wise, to put everything you have up there for people to get.
Yeah, and so there's always people that back it, people that never heard of me before. There's more people that have never heard of me than have. So it's like I said, it's tough, but hopefully now that I've got a publisher, it's kind of makes kind of a Wi-Fi signal for me to get people to know who in the hell I am. So
maybe different, different variant covers of those old stuffs for people to be like, you know what, I still want this though.
Yeah,
there will be the greedy people. Be like, I'm still buying all these.
yeah, they're fantastic. They're all fantastic. I don't even have a favorite one. They're so good, and
just keep doing it.
Plenty good ones. And there's the tier you can get every cover for Dexter Detective, and one of them that's going to be the last time I can do it because I'm almost out of both the variants for issue 2. I'm almost out of those, so. If people want them, this would be the time to get them if you want all the covers because they're
that's a good problem to have. Almost being out of issue 2 is a good problem to have.
Yeah, it's getting there. So we'll see what happens. I hold some back, and there's actually if somebody wants a piece of the original artwork for Dexter Detective, I've got 5 of those available, and those are very limited because issue 1 was hand drawn, and only half of issue 2 was hand drawn, and the rest are all digital. So I only got a few of those that I'm selling. The rest I want to obviously keep because it's your original. It's the issue 1 and
nostalgia.
issue 2.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So
absolutely.
And who knows? Maybe if it blows up, they'll be worth some money. We'll see.
It's worth more than digital because this doesn't exist.
Yes.
Exactly.
Sign it, and then it'll be worth even more because everything else is digital. I've been signing everything. Like, guess what? This is going to be special.
Definitely.
I spelled architecture wrong. There's only 25 that exist. Have a good day.
Yeah.
Spelling mistakes aside, I mean, you make your rare copies how you can.
Exactly. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
It's a learning curve, but we want everybody to learn about everything that you're doing, and we hope that they see more of your stuff in the future, and hopefully we have maybe an enticing con or something to get you our way for our fans to enjoy all of your stuff and get it easy on top of just supporting your Kickstarter, getting the catch up on your Kickstarter, so that way they have everything, and
Yeah.
they know what you're doing.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. We'll see. My job keeps me very busy, but yeah, we'll see. Maybe where are you guys out of?
We're out of Philadelphia.
Okay.
Philadelphia.
Yeah, that'd be a little bit of a drive for me, but who knows? We'll see.
That's why I said enticing. I'm like, hey, I already know this is a long pole. We'll throw that dart out like, hey, we got this person and this person. Like, you know what? Philadelphia doesn't look that bad. We said enticing. You got to set that mark beforehand and then just pray you could do something amazing later.
Yes, definitely.
Right.
Definitely.
Swing for the fences.
Sure.
But Frank, what is the next place people are going to be able to pick up your stuff and the comics? Is it
well, we're on production for the Caribe the Hunted. There's a few pieces. We're going to be some video editing, you and I, and but the next place that we have on the agenda is, well, First State Comic-Con, October 6th, and maybe the Cape Comic-Con, September 14th. So I'm going to be around, so a few places, best I can.
Frank's going to be out there. I have my charity event on September 7th, Party at the Park in York, Pennsylvania, for the Timothy J. Bugrell Foundation for Suicide Prevention. First event going on there. We have a lot of people, Aleem, as well as we have a DJ and a bunch of bands going out there, as well as like a bunch of food trucks. Vendors are starting to pop out there, as well as some wrestling, local wrestling guys are going to be out there. So it's going to be a really great event for charity. And then there's a lot of great stuff going on this media network every day, and we will always keep the good times rolling as long as we can. And
sure.
I'd like to end off this podcast the same way. We love you, we miss you, and we want to see you next time. Until then, game on, boys and girls. Bye-bye.
Feel free to give us a click and a like, subscribe, and give us a comment. Tell us what you think.
So the mouse pissed off Big Brother. Got into the Rice Krispies treats.
What? What do you have the first Christmas treats in? Like a bowl or something?
No,
like
man,
that?
it was like a cardboard thing. It didn't like chew into the cardboard. It hopped into it, ate them, and left. So Big Brother left a little present for him, and guess who was dead? Along with a sacrifice of the Rice Krispies that were left. Like, take it and throw it in the trash.
Right, yeah.
That's what you get for eating my Rice Krispies.
Yeah, don't play with that. Yeah. Those tall storage containers that for food works best for me.
We're gonna get some more of those. Especially going in the winter months. Winter months generally bring these guys out.
Bring them out, yeah.
Full force, and people have already been complaining in Parside about it. A problem with mice, so it's going to be a problem. Keep going on. Just keep your steel wool and traps ready with peanut butter people. They may also enjoy Rice Krispies. We'll let you know soon.
Make little Rice Krispie balls out of, that'll do it.
Bye.